What's up everyone, it's Becky here from the Beckosphere, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Becky. Thank you for visiting me. Would you consider hitting that subscribe button? Because I would really appreciate it. Thank you. This channel is all about talking about the climate, the problems, yes, but the solutions as well. And today we are going to react and fact check the climate portion of the vice presidential debate. So strap in. Before we get to it, I'm part of the cool crew that got their flu shot. So PSA, get your flu shot. It's good to do. Yes, your arm is sore, but it's a whole lot better than getting the flu. So let's get right into it. I have my nondescript beverage to help me get through this video. All right, let's get started.
And what he'll do with the money is invest it in the American people. And through a plan that is about investing in infrastructure, something that Donald Trump said he would do. I remember hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened.
Yeah, that's actually something, one of the first things that he promised was the infrastructure reform, because, you know, he's in construction, so of course he would argue about that. Yeah, no, didn't pan out. We haven't seen anything. Have you seen anything? I haven't seen anything.
But Joe Biden will do that. He'll invest in infrastructure. It's about upgrading our roads and bridges, but also investing in clean energy and renewable energy. Joe is going to invest that money in what we need to do around innovation. There was a time when our country believed in science and invested in research and development.
Shots fired! But yeah, I actually remember in 2018 specifically when there was a bunch of news that broke talking about how the Trump administration took words such as science and climate off their websites completely. So, that's concerning. And in the way of the Biden plan, we will talk about that on a whole nother video because I was going to talk about it before, but there's a lot to cover. But some of the basic things I'll talk about a little later in this video that the Biden plan is supposed to cover.
So that we were an innovation leader on the globe.
Because we had a president who cut taxes, rolled back regulation.
Yeah, he did roll back regulations. In fact, recently the New York Times reported on 100 environmental regulations that the Trump administration has rolled back.
Unleashed American energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, saved 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program.
I'm not an economist, so I'm not really going to talk about the stuff that doesn't have to do with the environment. Sorry. I don't feel like I have enough authority to talk about that topic.
We literally have spared no expense to help the American people and the American worker through this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to raise taxes. They want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal.
As Biden talked about a little confusingly in the actual presidential debate, he is not supporting the Green New Deal itself, but it is a big piece of framework for the Biden plan. So the first thing that he talked about was that the Green New Deal was going, or I guess Biden's plan, if he's wanting to make them the same topic, is going to bury the economy. There will be definitely an increase in the deficit. I'm not going to lie on that, but it's for, you know, saving the planet. So my biased opinion is that that's a good way to spend money instead of giving money to people that don't necessarily need it.
Which you were one of the original co-sponsors of in the United States Senate. They want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs all across the heartland.
So, let me give a quick little spiel on fracking. For those that don't know what fracking is, it's basically when a big drill sends chemicals and water deep down into the Earth's surface where there is a shale deposit, and they basically break the shale to release the oil and gas out of that deposit. So there have been a lot of discussions on the pros and cons of fracking, and the reason why it's such a big debate is because fracking is one of the main ways that we are getting fossil fuels right now. So that would be a main point of job loss if we were to move towards renewable energy. That being said, it's already been shown that there have been many jobs actually produced by renewable energy already. And so the idea that we are going to be just losing jobs is only part of the picture. In fact, it's going to increase jobs a lot when we move towards the renewable energy sector. And Biden has already talked about how when we do move into the renewable energy sector, we will be bringing people who will have lost jobs from fossil fuel companies over to the renewable energy side, so that they will not necessarily lose jobs, they will just switch what job they're doing, if that makes sense. In addition, there are a lot of other environmental concerns besides the fact that it is supporting a fossil fuel industry that is increasing greenhouse gas emissions. It also tends to, if not regulated correctly or not properly done, it can actually contaminate the local water supply, because when the earth underneath kind of cracks, it can end up in the groundwater. The excess gas that is being taken up also might enter into the groundwater. So that's a big concern. And something that I don't hear talked about a lot is that there's actually been some evidence showing that fracking creates earthquakes. So yeah, if you want to take one of the only natural disasters that will not be made worse via climate change and connect it to a industry that produces greenhouse gas emissions. So that's fun.
Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that.
So the reason why, my understanding, the reason why that they are arguing about the whole fracking thing and the reason why Biden refuses to say that he will end fracking, I believe he really means he's not immediately ending fracking, because fracking is one of the biggest industries of the fossil fuel industry. So to immediately cut it out without having a game plan of moving people from that type of job over to renewable energy would lose a lot of jobs, and that would be very problematic. So they are trying to make sure that they are not completely cutting off those jobs before having an alternative solution to move workers into. Does that make sense?
But look, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts.
I'm sorry, but that's rich coming from the Trump administration.
You yourself said on multiple occasions when you were running for president that you would ban fracking.
That might have been true. To be honest, I didn't really look that part up because she's not running for president anymore. So it's not really her call anymore.
Joe Biden looked at a supporter in the eye and pointed and said, I guarantee that we will abolish fossil fuels.
And he will, just not on the first day of office.
They have a $2 trillion version of the Green New Deal, Susan, that your newspaper, USA Today, said really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal.
So it is true that it's not very different, but I will say, having looked at the Green New Deal and now looking at Biden's plan, I will say that the Biden plan seems to be a lot more thorough with different points that they want to make sure they cover. The Green New Deal was more of a kind of a vague proposal basis, which it did its job. Its job basically was to move our expectation from what is possible when it comes to curbing our carbon emissions and what general steps would need to be taken, what sectors need to be looked at in order to make that happen. So that's why Biden says that it's a baseline, or it's a framework of his plan, because it kind of is. It was used kind of as an outline in a way, but Biden's plan is a lot more thorough. One of the things that he is saying is that he will be allocating $1.7 trillion of federal money to combating climate change and moving the U.S. towards a more environmentally friendly existence. In addition to that, he also would pressure private and state sectors to also allocate an extra $5 trillion towards those efforts. So that's where those numbers come from.
More taxes, more regulation, banning fracking, abolishing fossil fuel, crushing American energy.
I'm not sure why, well, I know why they put together crushing the economy and the energy sector with something like the Green New Deal. But those two things are not either or. In fact, for the most part, increasing renewable energy will actually help the economy. The economy needs more rejuvenation than what fossil fuels can provide. Fossil fuel companies are kind of stalling right now. And part of that, which is another thing that I feel like it's not really talked about very much, is that we actually have already used up 80% of our fossil fuel reservoir. It has been estimated that within around 50 years, we will have used up all of our oil and gas reserves. And in an extra 100 years, we'll use up all of our coal reserves that our planet has. So we have this idea in our mind that if we just go with fossil fuel, ignoring the fact that greenhouse gases will definitely make the planet more volatile with more extreme storms and all that stuff. But we have this idea that if we keep going on fossil fuels, that it will be able to sustain civilization. And it just won't, because it's a finite resource and we actually are running out of it. I mean, we've only been using it since the Industrial Revolution, which really, in the matter of human species, really wasn't that long ago. And yet we've already used up 80%. That's a lot. We don't have that much more time to be able to use that resource. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to just put more money at using it up.
An economic surrender to China is a prescription for economic decline.
I'm not quite sure what he's referring to with the economic surrender to China. Maybe he's referring to the energy sector. One of the things that I will say is that by utilizing our own renewable resources, which every country has access, well, for the most part, unless you live, super far north, have access to wind and solar power. So in a way, going towards renewable energy will actually make our U.S. energy dependency on other countries a lot less, because we won't need to get energy sources from other countries if we already have access to them.
President Trump and I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's underway right now will continue with 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House.
Thank you very, very much, Vice President Pence. Once again, you've provided the perfect segue to a new topic, which is climate change.
So that was all talking about before we even got into climate change, because Kamala kind of brought it into the conversation before, because we were talking about infrastructure, I believe. So now we're actually going to go into the climate change conversation itself, which we'll talk more about some of the stuff that we've already covered.
And Vice President Pence, I'd like to pose the first question to you. This year we've seen record-setting hurricanes in the South. Another one, Hurricane Delta, is now threatening the Gulf. And we have seen record-setting wildfires in the West. Do you believe?
They need to stop saying believe, because science is not a belief. It's just science. It's facts. It's study after study after study. It's meticulous. It's research done by people who have studied really hard in those particular fields for years. They have dedicated their lives to those fields. And to say that it can all be just taken away by a simple belief on whether or not something is true is frustrating. I mean, the fact that we have the word belief in this question is how we got into the politicization of this problem in the first place. It's not a belief, it's just a fact. Climate change is happening, humans are the main cause of it. There really is nothing to believe or not believe about that. Do you believe in gravity?
as the scientific community has concluded that man-made climate change has made wildfires bigger, hotter, and more deadly, and have made hurricanes wetter, slower, and more damaging. You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. Well, first, I'm very proud of our record on the environment and on conservation. According to all of the best estimates, our air and land are cleaner than any time ever recorded.
Our land and air are cleaner than any time recorded. So I'm not quite sure what he's referring to with the land is cleaner than before. Maybe he's referring to plastic pollution? So I will say, if you look at the chart right here, yeah, that's true. Air is actually cleaner now than it was when they initially took office. Whether or not that has to do with this administration is a little more questionable, because when you look at all the regulations that they rolled back, a lot of them do have to do with airborne. Coming from someone who's in California where all the wildfires are burning, I can say here the air quality is not great. But I digress.
Our water is among the cleanest in the world.
That's a straight up. Our water is the cleanest in the world if you just ignore the other 25 countries above us. Our environmental score out of all the countries in the world is 24. Our air quality is 16, and our water quality is 26. So no, I wouldn't say we're leading the world in that one.
And just a little while ago, the President signed the Outdoors Act. It's the largest investment in our public lands and public parks in 100 years.
That's true. And that was an amazing bipartisan effort. You can read more about it in one of the links below, but it's called the Great American Outdoors Act. And basically it allocates more funding to go towards facilities and infrastructure relating to national parks.
So President Trump has made a commitment to conservation and to the environment. Now, with regard to climate change, the climate is changing.
You know it's going to be bad when he starts off with, the climate is changing.
But the issue is, what's the cause?
Humans.
And what do we do about it?
Decrease greenhouse gas
President
emissions.
Trump has made it clear that we're going to continue to listen to the science.
No, no, he has not. Oh my goodness. He has not listened to the science at all. Just ask Fauci.
Now, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would put us back in the Paris Climate Accord. They'd impose the Green New Deal, which would crush American energy, would increase the energy costs of American families.
That's not true. In fact, wind power has actually become less expensive than burning fossil fuel. So, no, renewable energy is actually winning the free market, regardless of whether or not you like it.
In their homes, and literally would crush American jobs.
No, as I said before, it will actually increase American jobs.
And President Trump and I believe that the progress that we have made in a cleaner environment has been happening precisely because we have a strong free market economy.
So that's a whole nother video, to be perfectly honest, on what economic style is best for the environment. There's a lot of different opinions on that. What I will say is that it only works if leadership pushes industries in the right direction. If the industries go in the right direction, then potentially the free market could actually become more environmentally friendly. But we haven't seen that. And we're kind of running out of time to be very laissez-faire.
You know, what's remarkable is the United States has reduced CO2 more than the countries that are still in the Paris Climate Accord, but we've done it through
That's
innovation.
False. That's straight up false. In fact, we are still burning more fossil fuels than the whole European Union. So, no, not at all. We were decreasing before the Trump administration came in.
And we've done it through natural gas and fracking.
Okay. Natural gas is a more sustainable way of burning fossil fuel. But it ain't perfect because it still releases CO2. It's not renewable energy.
Which, Senator, the American people can go look at the record. I know Joe Biden says otherwise now, as you do, but the both of you repeatedly committed to abolishing fossil fuel and banning fracking.
We've already covered that.
And so by creating the kind of American innovation, we're actually steering toward a stronger and better environment. With regard to wildfires, President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center, and even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management.
My wildfire video is coming out on Monday. Check it out. We'll cover that whole thing later.
And with regard to hurricanes, the National Oceanic Administration tells us that actually as difficult as they are,
Thank you, Vice President.
There are no more hurricanes today than
Thank
there
you.
were 100 years ago.
But see, that wasn't the question. It's not whether or not there are more hurricanes. It matters more on whether or not the hurricanes do more damage and move slower on the land, causing more damage. And that is another video I want to do, is climate change's impact on the hurricane season. So stay tuned for that deep dive.
Thank you.
But many of the climate alarmists
President Pence,
use
I'm sorry, your time
hurricanes
is up.
and wildfires to try and
Thank
sell
you,
their
Vice
bill of
President
goods
Pence.
of a Green New Deal.
Climate alarmists, are we really going to pull that card? Really?
And President Trump and I are going to always put
Thank you,
American
Vice
jobs and
President
American
Pence.
workers first.
Senator Harris, as the Vice President mentioned, you co-sponsored the Green New Deal in Congress. But Vice President Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal. But if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework. What exactly would be the stance of a Biden-Harris
And we already
administration
kind of talked about that a little
toward
bit.
the Green New Deal? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. So first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact. I will repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear that he thinks about growing jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes for anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. Joe Biden's economic plan, Moody's, which is a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs
That's true.
than
Link
Donald
below.
Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden are going to be about clean energy and renewable energy. Because you see, Joe understands that the west coast of our country is burning, including my home state of California. Joe sees what is happening on the Gulf states, which are being battered by storms. Joe has seen and talked with the farmers in Iowa, whose entire crops have been destroyed because of floods. And so Joe believes, again, in science. I'll tell you something, Susan. I served, when I first got to the Senate, on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website?
Ooh, she actually brought that up. Yeah, as I said before, they did. That was a big thing in 2018. They took a bunch of words that were used to talk about climate change and scientific research off their website. And you say that you support science. I'm confused.
And then took the phrase climate change off the website? We have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science. And Joe's plan is about saying we're going to deal with it, but we're also going to create jobs. Donald Trump, when asked about the wildfires in California, and the question was, the science is telling us this, you know what Donald Trump said? Science doesn't know.
Her expressions are the best. I'm sorry, they're just so funny. Oh my gosh.
So let's talk about who is prepared to lead our country over the course of the next 4 years on what is an existential threat to us as human beings. Joe is about saying we're going to invest that in renewable energy. It's going to be about the creation of millions of jobs. We will achieve net zero emissions by 2050, carbon neutral by 2035.
I'll be honest, I was looking at the Joe Biden plan, and I don't know where the 2035 is coming from. I probably just missed it. Maybe when I go over the article, I'll see, but I did see the 2050 one where he was saying by at latest we need to be carbon neutral by 2050. But that would be great if he did it at 2035, because honestly 2050, it's too late. So we need it to be a lot earlier than that. And yeah, 15 years, that's hella ambitious, but it needs to happen.
Joe has a plan. This has been a lot of talk from the Trump administration, and really it has been to go backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
With pride. I will say, you know, there is definitely an argument that the Paris Climate Accord is not necessarily the most efficient agreement, considering there really isn't any punishment for countries that don't follow through with their promises. So it will be really interesting to see if Biden gets elected. This is my PSA. Vote. Please vote. Vote for the climate. Seriously. If/when he gets elected and they rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, it'll be interesting to see, one, if the countries still listen to us because we've kind of blown it on that front, and two, how they plan to hold different countries accountable to actually follow through with their climate plans.
Senator Harris just said that climate change is an existential threat. Vice President Pence, do you believe that climate change poses an existential threat?
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing. We'll follow the science.
If you follow the science, then you would be following the same sort of trajectory that Biden wants to, which is to fully reduce our CO2 emissions, our greenhouse gas emissions, and move towards a more sustainable way of doing things.
But once again, Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on every American.
Okay, I'm sorry, but he totally just, like, you can see, he was like, shoot, how am I going to, like, turn this towards a different topic that I can actually talk about? Economy. He couldn't talk about any of the other stuff because clearly he still doesn't even believe that climate change is happening, and we just kind of have to move on from that. So here's the thing, and this is the last thing that I'll say before I'll let you guys go. By making a topic like climate change a polarized political issue, you've kind of forced anyone who cares about the climate or the environment to be towards the Democratic Party, because right now our choice is either do something about it, do a lot about it, or go backwards. There is no staying the same. It's not a thing. If you don't do anything about it, that is moving backwards, because you are still releasing more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. You are still not listening to the scientists and not innovating and getting more research done. And the climate is going to keep changing. So, unfortunately, I come up very democratic, but frankly, my political views, my economic plans could be more towards the Republican free market side, but either way, it doesn't matter, because if we don't do something about the climate, then we won't have an earth in which we can talk about all the other issues. The rest of it relies on us doing something about the climate. So, when I say vote, when people say vote, and we say vote for the planet, you got one option. There's no argument with it, because it's either people who will plan on doing something about the environment, and regardless of whether or not you think that Biden will hold all those promises that he is saying, there's a better chance that something will get done and that we will move in the right direction than if we were to elect Donald Trump and Mike Pence in for another 4 years, and they will continue to decrease environmental regulation, increase the fossil fuel industry, and therefore increasing emissions, and just ignoring the fact that wildfires, hurricanes, flooding, sea level rise, ocean acidification, polar ice caps melting, is all happening because humans are changing the environment. So, unfortunately, that's where we're at. Again, get out there, vote, because we really need to change the trajectory of this planet. It's scary. So vote. That's all I can say about it. Anyways, I hope that you found this reaction video interesting. I hope that I was at least semi-entertaining. And I will see you all on Monday when we will talk about wildfires, land management, and climate change. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Remember to talk about the climate and vote and get your flu shot. Yes. Okay, last shot on the Roo. Look at that, he's still adorable. It's amazing how that happens. All right, I will see y'all later.